Hello and welcome back to Stronghold. I'm your host here, the Magi, and I'm streaming to you live on a Thursday afternoon. So, what is going on in the world that this has happened? Well, the truth of the matter is, about 10 days ago, my lower back decided that it hated me. And that has presented complications. And the short version of the story is that my usual budget perspective, which I try and include a lot of creativity and editing and things like that. And the simple fact of the matter is, it just has not gotten made, and it's not gonna get made. But there is a new set coming out. We are going into pre-release weekend, and I feel like there's things that need to be talked about with this. So let's start with the fact that we are going into pre-release weekend. For those that don't know, pre-release for a Universes Beyond set carries a premium, as all Universes Beyond products do, of 20 to 30%. And I spoke with some of the fine folks that run the friendly local game stores in my area, and pre-release for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a $50 price point. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't play paper Magic anymore. I gave that up a long time ago. Honestly, I found Arena because I was giving up paper Magic and just was not really into it anymore to put up with the price points and things like that. And that was 8 years ago. So yeah, needless to say, even when I do go to pre-release or something like that now, I don't think it's going to be Universes Beyond. I don't really recommend that as a value perspective issue. I don't think you're getting an extra 20 to 30% more out of a Universes Beyond, because what is happening here is Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, whoever makes these decisions, has decided to pass the cost of creating an outside intellectual property and bringing that into the Magic, and they're getting you to pay for it, because why would they want to pay for it? And I'm not saying that's a bad move on their part, or they're doing people dirty or whatever, but that's the fact. We are paying that with every single product that we buy, and I'm not sure that that can really be justified as far as the valuation. Whether it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Final Fantasy or Avatar, whatever, love it or hate it, Universes Beyond simply cost more. So definitely check your price points before going to your local pre-release, and at least know what you're getting into. And hey, if you're down with that, I fully support what you want to do with your money, because I'm not here to be your father or tell you what to do or whatever, but be aware and make poignant decisions based on that awareness. Okay, so we got real world Magic pre-release out of the way. Paper Magic costs more with Universes Beyond. Check. Let's move into my preferred realm these days, and that's Arena. We know going into this that we are getting a jump in set. It is scheduled for release days, midweek Magic event, as it typically is. What we don't know yet is whether that jump in is going to be a standalone event like we saw with Final Fantasy and Avatar, or whether it's going to be an additional 10 packs blended in to the broader jump in event. Now, personally, I believe that with Universes Beyond, we are going to see standalone events. Now, the one real question is when we get to the Marvel superhero set, but that's another day and another dollar. But I think what we're going to get is a standalone Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles jump-in event, And the simple reason I think we're going to get that is I think they're hedging their bets with Universes Beyond. If it's popular, like Final Fantasy, and has a general appeal audience, the way Final Fantasy did, being all of those packs were standard and alchemy legal, they can leave that event in there and just not change a thing. However, let's say they do a single event for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and it kind of flops and nobody seems to care. Not saying that's what will happen, but let's just talk about a theoretical. They could get 3 or 4 weeks into this event, realize it's not having a positive impact, and pull the plug. And they don't have to redo or roll back anything with the broader jump in event of universes within sets. So I think that's the logic that's going on here. I think it's a good thing, and we'll see how it plays out. Of course, I will be doing the midweek Magic coverage for the jump in event on March the 3rd, I believe it is, as well as a general tier list as we begin to know what these packs look like and how they potentially positively impact budget players. So be on the lookout for that. Now, with that in mind, Jump In is going to be potentially a very good way to add cards to your collection, as it generally is for the Jump In events. You're basically paying half price to open packs that are 50% bigger. And it just doesn't get better than that, literally. It's the best value available on Arena, and whether it's a standalone or it's a blended jump-in edition, I highly recommend it. I have 5,000 to 7,000 gold set aside for it pretty much every season, and in particular, if it's a standalone event, like 5,000 gold is probably going to get you your first copy of all 10 packs, and that gives you a really nice start. Because here's the second talking point, this is a small set. And the good, bad, indifferent news is it has a lot of Spider-Man vibes. Although they are very, very quick to point out that this set was always developed as a small set as opposed to whatever Spider-Man started as, whether that was some sort of mini pack set or a couple of commander decks or whatever. And I'll be honest, looking at the cards, looking at the limited environment, I believe that. I don't think they're pulling our leg. If it did start as something, it was changed very early on, and they did a very good job of creating a small set limited environment. That having been said, small sets are problematic when it comes to limited environments. They are generally not good, to the point of when we used to do multiple set blocks and you had like a big set and then you had 1 or 2 small sets come out after it. Eventually, Wizards stopped doing that because they themselves recognized that it was problematic and it wasn't very successful. So why are they doing small sets again? Well, I think honestly they probably bit off more than they could chew with so many Universes Beyond contracts and such a narrow time range on some of these things. I almost feel like they took a bunch of contracts not expecting for them to actually finalize and get signed. And then when they did actually finalize and get signed, they were like, oh poop, what do we do now? Oh, I guess we make small sets. So there's that. And to be honest, I find that frustrating because, again, having looked at these cards and looked at the limited environment, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to play. It really does. Now, granted, most of the archetypes, most of the mechanical aspects of it are very simple. And that's the way small sets tend to be, because if you overcomplicate them, they're much more likely to fail. The other issue that I have with the draft environment in general, from what I have seen of the early access, is that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is going to be, brace yourself, a pick 2 draft environment. And I don't think we're going to have any non-pick 2 options. And folks, I'm here to tell you, as a public service reminder from me to you on a personal level, friends don't let friends pick 2 draft. And I say that not because it's not necessarily fun or whatever, but as a value option. You are not going to get the same value out of a pick 2 draft as you do out of a normal 8-man pod draft where you pick one card at a time. Card selection and card options mean a lot. So if we're only getting pick 2 draft environment, I'm not going to do it. That's my personal decision. Again, I'm not your dad. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your arena resources or what you should or should not do. But I'm not going to do it. And the reason for that is, as I said, it's just not the same value option. And that raises jump in to be an even bigger option, an even more important option, if you would, for budget players trying to build up their collection and build decks with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and whatnot. Now, what those budget decks might be, whether they're worth building, we don't know yet. There just was not as much early access coverage, or at least not that has been published yet. Of course, we've still got several days here before even the arena release. So I don't know. I don't know if any of these decks are worth building. But the limited environment does look fun. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get an 8-man pod option for budget players in quick draft or something. But all of that remains to be seen. We just don't know yet. And of course, I will continue to cover these issues as things unfold and we get new information. Or as potentially things change. We just don't know enough 4 or 5 days before arena release. Now, of course, the other thing that I usually do in a budget perspective video is I talk about those budget bangers, those cards that as budget players we want to be aware of. And that's the other thing that I want to do here today is to take a look at this set. And instead of getting my curated list and graphics and edited and all of those wonderful things, instead, because of the power of back pain, we are getting kind of a fresh from the tap approach to this. You're going to get kind of a behind the scenes perspective of how I'm really doing this before I put the video together. To start things off, we do have 3 low rarity reprints, Make Your Move and Negate, which I don't know. I don't love that art. It has nothing to do with how April is being depicted. I don't know. I don't feel Negate out of that. That's my 2 cents. And of course, we've also got Escape Tunnel. And on the opposite end of the perspective, I love this art. I've never been in the sewers of everyone's favorite Magic Plane, New York City. But I have to imagine that graffiti is part of it. And I don't know, maybe this breaks immersion for some people. If that's you, I get it. I really do. But I love this art. I think it's great. I'm not familiar with this artist, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name. Yes, I am. Anami? Sorry. I don't know. Apology in advance. But I love the art, personally. I think they did a banger job of following the art direction. And generally speaking, I like the art of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles better than I like the Spider-Man art. And I'm not even going to bring up again the fact that on Arena, we didn't even get the damn Spider-Man art that a lot of people didn't even like. But anyway, so these are the reprints. These are the 3 cards on day 1 that you might already have. Now what I'm going to do here is actually switch over to non-collected. And for those that weren't paying attention, S:TMT, that's the set symbol, will show you all of the cards. Even though you probably don't have any of these, you're not able to pull them up in deck builders because, of course, they're not legal in any format yet because they haven't been released. And one thing I like to do is to take a look at the colorless cards. These are very high in my experience and expectation for budget players because they can be played in any deck. So crafting, opening, getting one of these cards is potentially more valuable because it can go in so many potential decks. And I'm just going to kind of run through these. Skateboard. I have seen a lot about this, particularly for things like Brawl and stuff like that, because it taps a creature, or actually, excuse me, it taps a permanent when it comes into play. I'm not sure why you'd want to tap very much other than a creature, but great, there's probably corner cases out there. It gives a +1/+0 and haste, and equips for 1, and of course the casting cost on this is 1. I'm not sure this gets a short list Brawl listing from me, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. Moving on. Chrome Dome. 2 mana, 1/3, robot ninja artifact creature. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+0. It also has a 5 colorless mana color sync that creates a copy of another target artifact you control. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your end step. So creating another artifact that has ETB triggers and things like that. I can definitely see where this would go very nicely into a deck that cares about artifacts. I'm not sure we have such a deck yet. And if we do, how many rares can a potential budget deck hold up? I'm not sure this one makes the cut. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We're just going to have to wait and see on that, to be honest. Omni Cheese Pizza, a common. So you're going to have copies of this. If you do draft, if you do play sealed, this is a pretty decent one to have in your sealed pool, especially if you're looking to play 3 colors. I think a lot of limited decks in this environment are going to end up having to play 3 colors, in particular in draft. I'm not sure you're going to get enough cards to build a 2-color deck in a lot of things, particularly as a budget drafter who's using several picks through the course of the draft to maybe pick up rares that aren't going to make the deck. But a 2 mana artifact food, when it ETBs you draw a card, that's pretty good right there alone. The fact that you can pay 1 and sacrifice it to add a mana of any color could be very important utility, again, in limited. For constructed, unless you really need the fact that this is a food and or an artifact, not really seeing it. And of course, pay 2 and tap and sack it, you gain 3 life, as food generally does. So kind of a mixed bag there. You are going to have copies of this. How much you end up playing them, particularly outside of limited, remains to be seen. I do think there's a potential for a Jund food, Jund pizza deck that I may end up talking about depending upon what you, as viewers out there, choose at certain points in time. And I could see this card going into that deck for the fixing capability because it's not looking to run a lot of red, but it wants to be able to cast the red things when it needs to cast the red things, i.e. removal. Moving right along now, Technodrome, a mythic 2 mana 3/3 with reach and trample that can't attack or block unless its power is 6 or greater. You can tap and sacrifice another artifact, you draw a card, and put a +1/+1 counter on Technodrome. I consider myself peripherally aware of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but watching this set unfold in previews also made me aware of a lot of things that I did not know about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Technodrome is one of those things that kind of vibes with me from that, Saturday morning after school cartoon kind of perspective. Is a mythic 2 mana 3/3 construct artifact creature, even with reach and trample, is it worth it when you got to jump through hoops to get it big enough to actually do things? Or are you just begging to continue investing in this just long enough that it comes online and then your opponent removes it? I'm not feeling with this. Prove me wrong. I won't be mad at all. I do think there is a potential for an artifact deck. I'm just not sure this is part of it. But if you open one, get it. Test it. Do your thing. I'm just not putting this on a craft list anytime soon. Now we've got the Ooze. Not just any Ooze, but the Ooze. A 2-mana legendary artifact that cares about +1/+1 counters. Whenever creature you control with a +1 counter on it leaves the battlefield, create a mutagen token for each +1/+1 counter. So this is like another version of an artifact that +1/+1 counter decks really love. And I can't think of the name right now. And because I'm doing this ad hoc, I didn't do the research. Sorry, sue me. It's a thing. But that is a 1-mana artifact, and when your creatures and things and whatnot with +1/+1 counters on it die, you put the +1/+1 counters on that artifact, and then as new things come into play, you can move some, or I can't remember if it's one or more or what, but those +1/+1 counters eventually move to other things and continue to beat face. Of course, mutagen tokens are pay 1 and tap, sacrifice this token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and the fun police say you can only activate this as a sorcery. And I'm going to be honest, I joke about the fun police and sorcery speed, but the reality is mutagen tokens would be a little broken if you could do these at instant speed. The Ooze also taps and exiles target card from a graveyard to create a mutagen token, giving even more reach, so to speak, not to be confused with the keyword reach, to cards in your graveyard and helping you expand board presence. I think any deck that cares about +1/+1 counters is definitely going to be interested in a copy of this card. And if you have such a deck, like as a pet deck, a brawl deck, maybe in the Eternal formats, right now there's not a good +1 matters deck in Standard as a budget deck. Maybe that changes with the Turtle set coming out, but I'm not 100% convinced yet. But this is definitely one to keep an eye on. It's going to be a thing. Next up, we've got the 3-mana rare Turtle Van, a 4/4 artifact vehicle that crews for 1. So pretty good value right off the bat. I mean, like dropping this is 3, crewing it for 1, and trading a 1/1 that is probably not relevant on the board state anymore, and instead having a 4/4 creature. It's a pretty good upgrade. Particularly when we have a number of creatures that want to be tapped. Almost feels weird to say that out of context. But anyway, I'd tap that. Turtle Band. Also, whenever this vehicle attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that crewed it this turn. And of course, it crews for 1. That doesn't mean you can't overpay it. You can tap a creature that is a 3/3 because you want the counter on it. Then, if that creature is a mutant, ninja, or turtle, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. Outside of limited, I'm not sure how much that second clause is really going to matter. It's really going to depend on how much mutants, ninjas, or turtles as creature types become relevant in Standard, or maybe more arguably don't become relevant. I don't know. I don't have my crystal ball with me. I'm sorry. But that is going to be a big portion of whether this sees a lot of success. As it stands, this is not a card that I am really watching until I want to see it for a particular deck that is focused on or takes enough advantage of that 3 creature type stanza there. Moving on. Weathermaker, a 3-mana rare artifact with landfall. Let's start this off real quick. The fact that this is a landfall card does not mean it goes in your mono green landfall deck. That deck does not need this card. It does not want this card. Do not craft this card to put this in that deck. If you open a copy of Weathermaker, don't even test it in mono green landfall because you're just wasting your time. The fact that it makes mana of any color doesn't matter for mono green landfall. The fact that it can make 2 mana that's colorless doesn't matter for mono green landfall. And the fact that it can deal 3 damage to any target will almost never matter to mono green landfall. Now, that all having been said, Weathermaker is a 3 mana rock that has a pretty high potential in Brawl or Standard Brawl. And if you get a copy, that's where I would be testing it. I think that is where you're going to see value out of Weathermaker, is as a 3 mana rock that has landfall upside. Whether it is going to be good enough to recommend it for crafting or not remains to be seen. And a lot of that is just going to come down to the aforementioned testing in the appropriate formats and utilizations. Next up, we've got Henchbot, a 4 mana 2/3 that exiles target tapped creature and opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. Budget perspective, I love this card. It's a 4 mana robot. It's a 2/3 body. It's kind of narrow removal, but it does exile. And you kind of got to wait for the right time, because it can only do a tapped creature to exile it. And that tapped creature has to be under your opponent's control, so you can't use this to effectively blink your dude. 4 mana is also a little overpaying, but I think this card is good enough that for budget players, this is a removal spell that you can put in every single deck in Standard if you need to. That having been said, most of those good budget decks are going to have access to better budget removal than this, depending upon how big your collection is. But if you're coming in with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, don't be afraid to put a copy of this, or maybe even 2, in those budget decks that you're still kind of putting together, and maybe your removal package isn't quite there. This is another one that goes very nicely into your Brawl/Standard Brawl decks, and as an uncommon that you're very likely to simply open or otherwise budget acquire a copy of this, i.e. you're not even talking about spending a wild card. Very, very strong card. I'm keeping a close eye on this. Turtle Blimp, a 5 mana 3/4 flying vehicle artifact. When it enters, create a 2/2 red mutant creature token, and oddly enough, it crews for 2. Is this good enough? I don't know. I think honestly this is mostly in here as a limited piece for a set that is not really strong or otherwise focused on flying creatures. This gives you an evasive option. Does it bridge in any way beyond limited? We're going to have to wait and see. Maybe. I mean, it certainly has everything it needs to maybe be good, but is 5 mana just too much for a 3/4 conditional flyer? It's a strong case. Krang Utram Warlord. You're reading that correctly. It's a 9 mana, 9/9. The true mark of the beast. Legendary artifact creature, Utron robot. It has some keywords: flying, trample, indestructible, and haste. Other artifact creatures you control have flying, trample, indestructible, and haste. This is the walking, talking definition of a robot with a brain in its belly, or otherwise known as a beat stick. I'm not looking to craft this. I'm going to be honest. But if I end up with a copy of this in my collection, it is darn sure going to go in my base black Reanimator deck. Because What a beat stick. Flying Trample, Indestructible Haste. And if you happen to have another artifact creature, and who cares if you don't, they also get all of those keywords. So that is the colorless things going on here. I feel like we missed one. I feel like there is in fact like an actual colorless card that did not show up here. And I'm going to look for that now because it seemed like there was a truly colorless card. Yeah, like Everything Pizza. I think this might be a cute build around. I don't think it's going to be good. Let's be real honest. I don't think it's getting there. I thought there was definitely not a turtle. Maybe that's not in the main set. Maybe I'm thinking that's from Commander. Okay, so that's where I'm gonna end off on that conversation. Is that must have been a Commander card that did not make the main set because I'm seeing all the other cards right here. So let's talk about lands, shall we? Because this is another thing that as a budget player, I always have to look at and try and give solid advice on. First on the pizza basics. Love them or hate them, they're here. They're going to be right here on Arena. So get used to that. And I'm not going to spend any resources for these. Maybe they're going to give these to us. I don't know. But this is probably the basic land we're going to get. And I don't hate these New York style things. I think they're a little better in theory than what we got from, again, the beloved Spider-Man set. And I think the Ninja Turtles in New York basics are also better than Pizza Lands. I don't know that I'd spend any resources to do these, but if you're a Teenage Mutant Ninja fan and that floats your boat, man, I am not here to tell you you're wrong. I just think these are much more interesting. But I don't hate the basics, you know? Okay, anyway, let's move beyond basics. We have a 5-card cycle of enemy, tap lands that are functional reprints of the game lands. Why they did this, I don't know. We already have game lands. I guess they needed them for the limited environment, which, you know, they did. And I guess they just didn't feel comfortable using the existing game lands doing it. And my guess is if they did this here, they're probably going to print the ally color new versions of game lands in one of the other Universes Beyond sets this year. Most notably either The Hobbit or Star Trek. You heard it here first. It's probably going to happen. So all of these are, like I said, they're the enemy pairs. The only one I really care about from a budget perspective is Foot Headquarters, because, of course, this is the only one that really fits into a Life Game Matters deck. Now, maybe with some of the new white Life Game Matters decks, maybe Dimension X finds a home. Maybe your Brawl deck, it's one more card you can play that's, you know, a fairly cheap mana fixer. But beyond that, I'm just not terribly excited about these. We talked about Escape Tunnel. Still love the art. Northampton Inn, the one rare land in this set. And, you know, I usually love the flexible, if you would, rare lands. But this one is not helping your mana base. In fact, let's be honest, it's probably a detriment to your 2 or more color mana bases because it only taps for colorless mana. Now, beyond that, it is a utility land. Paying 1 and tapping to exile target creature you own, or pay 2 and tap and sacrifice this land, returning a creature card exiled with this land to the battlefield under your control, and returning each other card exiled with this land to its owner's hand. So I'm not seeing this in a lot of budget 2-3 color decks. Maybe if you've got a monocolor deck that really needs to protect its finisher piece or something like that, maybe it goes in that. Where, again, I think this card shines, hold on to your socks, is Standard Brawl and Brawl. Use this to protect your commander, other beat sticks out of those decks, etc., etc., etc. Or, of course, decks that functionally want to blink things. Very, very good. The place in 60 card constructed that I think this card might find a home, and I say might, is in a deck in a control matchup. If you're playing against a control and let's say you filled out your board and you've got 3 or 4 creatures out there, maybe one of them really isn't relevant in board state anymore, and you play this land and you go ahead and exile that creature that's not really doing anything on your board anymore anyway, as kind of a hedge. Then next turn, on opponent's turn, whatever, you've got this untapped. It doesn't untap itself, but let's say you didn't tap it when it first came into play, or it's later in the game, and you have this untapped, and your opponent casts a sweeper. Now you can protect your best creature with this and functionally have it survive the sweeper. That's pretty darn good, because you can tap it in exile, and then next turn you can bring it back, along with any other cards, like the first example that maybe you proactively shielded under Northampton Farm. That's where this card goes. This is not mana fixing. It's not one of these cards that necessarily you want to craft, that you want to make sure you have in your budget collection. But if you do end up with it, there are potential places to use it, and how strong it ends up being in those places may determine whether this is a card we talk about at the end of season as something you potentially want to craft for those reasons. If you notice, we've talked about that type of scenario with several different cards through the course of this conversation. So be on the lookout, as always, for a end of season crafting guide. I don't always do one, and if I don't do one, it means there wasn't anything that you needed to craft that we didn't already talk about. So, put that as a footnote. A last card here, Turtle Lair. The uncommon tribal land. This one only hits ninjas and turtles. No love for mutants here. It only produces colorless land unless it is providing mana for a ninja and or turtle spell. As an added benefit, you can pay 3 and tap this, so a target ninja or turtle cannot be blocked this turn. My first thought on this is it's just a little too narrow for budget players. I'm not sure ninjas and or turtles, as I've said before, are really going to find a place in constructed. I'm not sure they're really going to find a place in standard or brawl, or standard brawl for that matter. So maybe, but I'm not holding my breath on this one. It's just how it is. All right, so now we're going to drop out of lands, and I just want to look at uncommons here. And there's a couple here that I want to have conversations about, because I think they're a little above rate, and I think they have some potential, obviously for limited, but even beyond limited. These are the cards that I'm watching to see if maybe they kind of create a basis for a budget deck. First up in this conversation is Mighty Mutanimals, 4 mana 2/1, which is shitty stats. Let's just be honest. If that was the end of the card, we would not be talking about it. But of course, as you may have guessed, it's not the end of the card. When this creature enters, create a 2/2 red mutant token. Not a turtle, it's a token. So now we're 4 power, 3 toughness total for 4 mana. Not too shabby. It also has Alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Keep in mind, it is going to see when its own token is created. So now we're talking 5 power, 4 toughness for 4 mana. It's a little difficult to cast, maybe, because it is double white in the casting cost. But this is one of those cards I think you got to look out for. Another one that I think has some really strong potential is, I don't know how to say this person's name. I'm going to say Kairi, Future of the Foot. She's the female ninja that follows Shredder around in one of the movies and has like 3 scenes. Really underdeveloped creature. Really underdeveloped character, I guess, from my perspective. I'm sure if you read the comic books, this is much more relevant. In fact, I think there's a whole arc where she teams up with the Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. But a 3 mana 3/3 is pretty decent stats. It sneaks for 4, which, if you don't know, sneak is kind of like ninjutsu, but it's not just for creatures anymore. Oh no, you can sneak in sorceries and instants, and because of the timing factors for sneak, you can even cast sorceries at instant speed. But that's all a side note. I actually assume that you already know what's going on mechanically in this set. If not, Wizards did an article. It's all pretty basic. Read before, God forbid, you go do a pre-release or play early events on Arena or whatever. Be informed. It's a recurring theme around here. But what really makes this special is whenever she deals combat damage to a player, yes, I assumed her pronouns, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If her sneak cost was paid this turn, instead, return that card to the battlefield. That's pretty gnarly. And maybe even a card that goes in Reanimator as something that you hard cast, hard sneak. Maybe. I also think this is the Signpost Uncommon that is most likely to spawn a new and unique deck, be it budget or not, remains to be seen, in Standard. So keep your eye on this guy, or gal, or whatever. From here, I want to talk about green for a hot minute, because I think white has the most powerful low rarity cards in limited environment, but I think green has the most depth at low rarity. And we'll talk about that again when we talk about the limited environment and forming a draft plan. But green has a lot to offer. Not only is Courier of Combustibles, what is that even a word? I don't know. Back in the day when I was in elementary school, we got punished for, being hoodlums by copying pages out of the dictionary. I have a pretty verbose vocabulary, and I'm not familiar with the word combustibles. Or maybe this is like a cute play on words that is escaping me. I don't know. But this is a key card for any of the food-based decks. And I think food maybe is going to be one of the better decks in Limited for budget players. We'll talk more about that again at a later date. But this is one of those cards that must be in that deck, because when it ETBs, you can search your library for a food card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. This set brings a lot of good Silver Bullet style food cards. And Standard already has food in it because, Wilds of Eldraine, I think, is still a thing in Standard, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe that's rotated. Been talking a long time and all the blood is rushing away from my head. Let's see here. What else have we got here? I want to talk about our boy Mikey. Because Mikey is by far, on the rare occasions that I watch the cartoon and stuff like that, he was my favorite Mutant Ninja Turtle. Mostly because he was the cool dude, you know what I mean? He also had a thing for April, which, why would you not, right? But a 4 mana 4/4 is really respectable stats to start with, even with double green. But he does more than that. Each creature you control with a counter on it, not a +1/+1 counter, but a counter of any type, can't be blocked by more than one creature. So, you know, put a oh god, what is it? The evasion. It's in a lot of black things. Put a token on a creature or a counter on a creature that gives it that evasive ability, and suddenly it's unblockable. But wait, there's more. When he enters or attacks, create a mutagen token. We talked about mutagen tokens. The one beef I have with mutagen tokens, you know, jokes about sorcery speed and fun police aside, is the fact that they named it a mutagen token. Does that mean that because of intellectual property issues around the word mutagen, that we never get to see these again? I don't know. We might also get a very similar thing called a mutate token later. But if that's the plan, why didn't they just do that damn thing now? But anyway, that's a thing. I think Michelangelo might be one of the best uncommons in the set. I really do. He just has a lot of potential. And for those that don't know, the turtles, Mikey's thing is nunchucks. That is his weapon of choice. Every turtle has one. Do your due diligence and read all about it on your own time. But Mikey, likey the nunchucks. And the next card I want to talk about is the novel Nunchaku, which, you know, I've always said nunchucks. It's just a thing. 3 mana artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, attach it to target creature you control. When you do, equipped creature fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Okay, so they're nunchucks and they're used in fighting. Hey, that's a flavor win. And as a person who very non-seriously studied martial arts and learned what I could, and did spend a little time with nunchucks, I think the fact that this is a full-on fight where your creature gets hurt too, as opposed to what we commonly refer to as a bite effect that's all one-sided, speaks volumes about how nunchucks actually work. Because you could very, very easily hurt yourself and regret all of your life decisions. So I see that as yet another flavor win. Furthermore, equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. If you had asked me how nunchucks would be mechanically described in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I probably would not have come up with trample. But it is also genius. And of course, this equips for 3. So it auto-equips the first time for free, which is great. And if this doesn't win you the game and your creature eventually dies, you can continue to punish your opponents with nunchucks. And I really, really like that. The last full-on green spell that I really want to talk about is West Wind Avatar. That is a 7 mana 7/7 with Trample Cat Spirit Avatar. I don't know, even in green, even in a Badger Mole infected standard, if there is room for a 7 mana 7/7 with Trample. I just don't know. There might be better things to do with your mana than dump it all into this card. But this is a very strong card, and it's going to do work in Limited, particularly in Sealed, where getting to 7 mana is just not all that hard. As I said, it is a 7/7. It is Trample. And whenever this creature enters or attacks, you may sacrifice a token or land. If you do, you gain 3 life. It has Disappear, one of the other mechanics, which basically just says, if anything left the battlefield, in this case, under your control, draw a card. Because at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent left the battlefield under your control, this turn, draw a card. Not all Disappear triggers draw cards. I kind of gave that impression a minute ago, and I'm sorry. That was unintentional. So this is going to be one of those to watch out for. As I said, It's definitely going to be banger in limited, and it might do things in constructed. Obviously, it's not Ouroboros, but not everyone has mythic wild cards, and not everyone was around to get Ouroboros. Um, this card, on the other hand, does love copies that you may have of Ouroboros, because the only thing better than a 7/7 with trample is an 8/8 or a 9/9 or a 10/10 or whatever. This card just gets ridiculous, and unlike a lot of cards in those Boroid decks, it has trample on board. So chump blocking is not really a long-term option. Now, when it comes to gold cards, we've got some things that I think are very good in green. Tainted Treats, and maybe even Pizza Face could be good, at least in limited. Those are going to do well. And Genghis Frog and Lessons from Life. Don't stress out over the picture. Just don't do it to yourself. Life's too short. There's more important things. Both of those, again, going to be really good in limited, and may transition over into constructed, depending upon how this deck actually plays in the broader standard, or how this set plays in the broader limited or standard constructed environments. Boy, I have been streaming for way too long. But that is actually bringing us towards the end of the stream. As I said, I'm going to be planning on investing very heavily in Jump In. I don't expect to be investing at all in a pick 2 limited environment. Again, I really hope I'm wrong, but there it is. This being a small set that is very, very heavily committed to legendary creatures, I'm not planning on buying packs. I don't think I need to buy and open packs for this set to end up getting the things that I want as a budget player. Typically, we end up getting between 30 and 35 packs as free-to-play players without buying any whatsoever through the free version of the Mastery Pass, 3 free packs. Looks like we're going to have 2 months of rank rewards that are handing out turtles. And we might see some other things. So we're going to end up, like I said, between 30 35 packs, and that is going to get you a surprising amount of this set. So maybe don't buy any packs. I'm certainly not buying the 45 pack bundle, no matter what the rare is in it. I just don't think I'm going to get, as a budget player, enough value out of opening those packs, even with the added rare, to possibly make it worthwhile. Instead, I'm going to pass that 45,000 or so gold that is normally in my budget towards a future set. And I don't know what set I'm targeting on that. Because to be perfectly candid, somebody asked me this in a conversation over on Patreon the other day. Forgive me. Sorry about that. I didn't have my hand close enough to the mute button. I apologize. I am in fact human, not an AI-generated voice. I cough. But anyway, they asked of the sets, and we have 7 this year, 5, not including Lorwyn or Turtles remaining, which of those are I excited and looking forward to? And the fact of the matter is, with the exception of Marvel superheroes, I'm kind of indifferent on either one. Much the same way I was and continue to be about Turtles. I want to see what those sets actually look like, how they're going to perform, etc., before I really get excited or commit to those. So I may be pushing a lot of potential gold even into 2027. Probably not. I mean, at least one of these sets is going to be good, right? Like, there's 5 sets. One of them's bound to be good. Just statistically, they could mess up and accidentally make a good set out of that. But where it's going to go, I don't know. I really want The Hobbit to be good. I wouldn't mind the Star Trek set being good. Wouldn't bother me at all. But we know there's at least one other small set, and we've talked about the potential problems with small sets and things like that. So I don't know which of those are the leading candidates for the small set conversations. We don't know if which one it's going to be, or potentially both. You just never know. The one set that I really want to be good is Reality Fracture, and I have said it before on air, so to speak. I am expecting that set to finally answer the question of where slivers come from, and I am super looking forward to having slivers in standard for 2+ years. I'm that person. Love me or hate me, that's who I am. So really setting myself up potentially to be wrong and be disappointed. But I really want Reality Fracture to be good. And of course, the one set that I am not going to get on board with is Marvel Superheroes. Not because Spider-Man, not because I don't like Marvel, etc., but for the simple and undeniable fact that as an arena-first player, I'm not getting the real product. And if I'm not getting the real product, I'm not going to spend real product resources in acquiring it. Just not going to do it. It's my little protest to Wizard of the Coast, Arena Team, Hasbro, whoever made that decision. I don't know. I don't know who did it. I don't know why they did it. I've theorized on this in the past, and I won't go into it again. But that is my form of protest. So there it is, guys. Everything I'm thinking about Ninja Turtles and beyond. I know this isn't my usual budget perspective video. I hope it's been helpful. And if you feel like there's something I did not address in this, or you just have general questions, or I ramble like an idiot and you need some clarification, get down in the comments, ask questions. Not only will I attempt to answer your questions, but we have a really great community that tries to help each other out. So come be part of that community. Like the video, because I'm sitting here looking at my next dose of Tylenol to coax my lower back into submission after I sat here in my desk chair for almost an hour. So, you know, like, show a little love. I greatly appreciate it all the time, and especially on this video. And subscribe, be part of the community. Like I said, it's great, folks. And we're here because we're all budget players and we're stronger together. Okay, guys, I'm going to shut up. That's it. I promise. As always, thank you guys for being here. I really, really appreciate it, as always. And until next time, I will see you